Hello again and welcome to the ninth and final round of Stockholm Chess Challenge. And unfortunately I'm not here with Ellen anymore. She had to take the train home to Copenhagen, but instead we have our sponsor here from Data Response, Åsa. And well, thank you so much for joining me here talking a little bit about the tournament and Data Response.
It's my pleasure.
So can you tell us a little bit, how come you're sponsoring a chess tournament?
Well, we are Data Response is deeply into sustainability, like most companies are right now, because it's very important that we take care of the environment and that we think smart when it comes to the future. And that, as a part of that, we have a program that we call Enabling the Young. And what we mean by that is trying to support young people so that they can grow and succeed. And chess is a part of that. So
And thus we have this youth tournament for young players in Sweden.
yeah.
But Data Response is not only in Sweden, it's a Norwegian company as well.
It started in Norway 32 years ago, so it's quite old by now. And then we have business in all Nordic countries, and in Germany and Taiwan also.
Oh, okay. And for how long have you been with Data Response?
For 13 years now.
Oh, okay.
So it's quite a journey, I would say.
So what is Data Response working with?
We are a technology company. So we work together with our customers with solutions, smart solutions, embedded solutions. We can actually provide everything from the start, from sensor, all the way through products and life cycle management. And then the customers are able to just pick, like, a Swedish smorgasbord.
Yeah.
They pick the parts that they want them to help us, or want us to help them with. And it's long-term business, often. So we have a lot of skilled engineers in Data Response.
Yeah, I would assume.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the tournament so far? Is this the fourth tournament?
It's the fourth, yes.
And you've been here following each year?
Yes, I have. And it's really, I'm not a chess player, but I really enjoy it because I can see the people meeting, and that's very good, I think.
Yeah, we have a lot of very young players here from all around the world, all the way from India and to here to Sweden, and it's a lot of fun. And of course, we're really grateful that Data Response wants to help young people improve, and gives us the opportunity to arrange such a tournament as well. Do you have a favorite chess player that you're rooting for here?
I'm not supposed to tell you. I don't think so. I think the young ones are. I mean, they are 11 and 12.
Yeah.
And they're so impressive. I think it's nice to have the grandmasters playing with these younger ones that are fighting to get some kind of title. Yeah, that's good.
And also that they're doing extremely well as well. We had one of the young Swedish players beating a grandmaster this morning already. So they're definitely doing their best here. So what does the future look like for this tournament?
Well, the future is we've signed for 3 more years, so it's 2 years definitely.
Yeah.
But as I said, we are long term. So we're discussing how we can develop it in the future. We think there are so much similar skills needed to be a good chess player and to be a great engineer. So we see the opportunity to perhaps also get people into technical business
Yeah.
In the future, there's so many smart brains out there.
Yeah.
So.
And you were also a part of this arrangement on the Stockholm train station a few days ago, where people could pitch their ideas with sustainable business ideas, and that was a lot of fun. I met you there the day before the tournament started.
And we had our CEO, Kenneth Rangvaldsen, he was in the jury for that part.
For those of you who watched previous year, as I interviewed him here as well.
Yeah.
So will you be coming back the future years and follow this tournament?
I will, definitely.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you will follow the last round, and hopefully it will go well for, at least I'm hoping a lot for the Swedish players to do well. Okay, good. So thank you so much for joining me here.
Thank you.
And we'll take a short break, and I'll soon be back and look at the games with you.
Good.
So we're live again, and like I said, this is the 9th and final round, and I'm here by myself because Ellen is on her way home to Copenhagen on a train. And hopefully you'll stand with me anyway, even though I don't have my colleague here to help me analyze the games. And this is a very interesting round, because not only is the tournament victory decided, because there are actually 2 players that can score an I am norm. We weren't so sure about it last round when we commentated, but we've looked it up. And according to our source, both Siddharth from Singapore can get an I am norm, and also the Swedish player Jung-Min Seo can score an I am norm if he beats Hampus Sørensen. And well, Siddharth has quite a big challenge, because he's playing white against the top seed of the tournament and the leader Kirill Stupak, which definitely isn't a very easy task. Then we have Jung-Min Seo, of course, playing against Hampus Sørensen, and then the other player leading the tournament together with Stupak is Majorov, and he's playing white against Kenneskog. And obviously being white in the final round should provide some kind of advantage, even though Stupak, of course, is a huge rating favorite, at least in that game. So I don't know if I should try to make some kind of prediction, or if I should just jump into the games. I'm gonna go for some predictions. Siddharth Stupak, I'm actually gonna go for a draw, because I think Siddharth has survived a lot of really bad positions lately, but he's playing white, he's being solid, and I think Stupak, yeah, I don't know. My gut feeling says that Siddharth can hold a draw here, so I'm gonna go for that. Mayorov, Keneskog, I think Keneskog hasn't shown his best play in this tournament so far. Mayorov has been playing pretty well, I think. Some minor scares, but nothing too big. And I think playing white, Mayorov is gonna win this. If Keneskog was white, I might have said a draw, but Mayorov playing white is gonna be a challenge for Keneskog. In the third game, we have Jungmin Seo playing Hampus Sørensen. They are, I think, around the same age. Maybe Jungmin is 1 year older. But Jungmin is playing white. And he's gotten a double white, actually, because he was white this morning. And he's playing Hampus, who's maybe not played a great tournament, but he actually beat Blomqvist this morning. But I actually think Jungmin is gonna win this game and secure his first IM norm. It's maybe a little bit of wishful thinking myself, because he's my student, but I do think he will win this unless his nerves get to him. In the fourth round, we have Erik Blomqvist playing Martin Jogstad. Blomqvist has nothing but he's played a miserable tournament for him. I don't think he's very happy. He just wants to finish this tournament and get some kind of consolidation prize and hopefully be done with it. And I had lunch with him and Ellen at an Indian place close by, and he doesn't seem that motivated, but he's not the one who crashes when everything goes bad. He's still gonna play his best, and he's gonna try, and he's gonna win, hopefully. For him, and my prediction is that he's gonna win. Finally, we have a couple of interesting matchups. We have Leo Krevatin playing Kulkarni, and I actually don't know how to rate their performances in this tournament. Leo started off in a pretty tough situation, but I'm actually gonna go for a draw in this game. I know that Leo can play pretty solidly. And Kulkarni hasn't maybe played his best tournament either. Axel Ukvaløy plays white against the Indian Shah Dev. And Dev, I think... How has he performed in the last couple of rounds? Yeah, he's played a lot of draws and lost 2 games, so I actually think he's gonna lose this one as well. Axel... Well, he has struggled, but he has won 2 games. And I think I've seen him play a lot of good positions as well. Savita is playing Edwin Trost, another very interesting matchup, where I think Savita is actually gonna win this one. Even though she's not the rating favorite, I think she's clearly underrated. She's playing white, and Edwin has played a lot better than he has in this tournament. Finally, we have Hugo Wernberg, who drew this morning, which I'm very happy he did. But I don't think it's going to be enough, because I think Khan is still a bit too strong for him. Also considering he should be a bit tired and maybe not so happy about his tournament performance so far. So we should probably just jump into the action immediately. I'm gonna start off with the top game. Jagadish Siddharth from Singapore is playing Kirill Stupak. I'm gonna keep some extra focus on the top boards here, actually, because it's about norms, it's about winning the tournament, it's about the main top prizes this year. And we see here Stupak is playing this move c5 that signalizes that he might be okay with going into some kind of symmetrical English slash can become a Benoni if white plays d5 here, the fianchetto Benoni. But instead white does play this move bishop g2, which of course is fine. d5 can lead to this fianchetto Benoni like I mentioned, or even a Benko gambit if you play b5 here. But I do think bishop g2 is actually just a better move. And What many people play here, I know, is they take and they go d5. Sorry if the program isn't perfect, but this is what I can do. And I know that this is supposed to be fine theoretically, but people don't really want to play this if you want to go for a win with black, because positions can become extremely symmetrical if you take on d5 here. So it's not a surprise that Stupak doesn't go for this line, but instead he picks a somewhat rare sideline, going for this queen a5. And I can't really recall the theory here. I think I've seen this position before, but I can't really recall that much. And I assume if bishop d2, the queen is gonna drop back to b6 and put some pressure on the b2 pawn. And I also think that if bishop c3, there might be this move knight e4, trying to get the bishop pair if this bishop on c3 won't move. But I have to say that I haven't really studied this move queen a5 before. Knight c3 was played, but then again knight e4 is a move to consider, and we get the sort of unusual type of position, which I think Stupak is quite happy with, because he's playing for a win with black. He needs to shake things up a little bit. He's putting some pressure on c3, and if you go bishop d2, obviously black is quite happy getting the bishop pair just taking on d2. So Siddharth goes for queen d3. I have no idea whether they're actually aware of the theory here. I assume black should be, considering he went for this line. C takes d4, attacking on c3, which means white needs to recapture. And I think one key idea, if you take here, white is probably going to play this in between of bishop d2, because you don't want, for example, if you take, you don't want this pawn structure with two very bad pawns on the c-file. I think bishop d2 is the key idea, and then take on c3 with the bishop, and it looks pleasant for white. So knight c5, queen d1, and if black had already castled, there would be a cute idea of taking here and playing knight b3. But here, unfortunately, black is getting mated because the rook is hanging. So it doesn't really work. So knight c6 is played instead. e3 just supports it. But generally, I'm not sure if I think white's better or if I think black is okay here. e3 is usually not, well, the most aggressive, but if white has to play like a move like a3 and suddenly black has to worry about b4, then maybe white can become better quite quickly. And we see here he plays this move knight e6. And he takes e6. So I think I'm not a huge fan of black's position here. Like I usually say, I mean doubled pawns are usually good, but this is not a normal doubled pawn. They're not supposed to be like this. So it feels like if white plays well, like he did with bishop d2, white has 3 against 2 on the queen side. Black's advantage on the king side isn't really felt because of this. This pawn should be on d6, not e6. So it feels like it's 4 against 4, because these two pawns are, I'm not gonna say useless, but not as useful as they could be. And I think it's much easier for white to play and take advantage and push a3, b4 and so on and get the pawns rolling than black to actually do anything with their pawns on the king side. And oh, I forgot. Maybe I can try to keep an eye on the chat. I will figure out how to do it. Oh, yeah, no one has written anything so far. I keep an eye on the chat on Chess24. Maybe I should keep an eye on the chat on the website as well, but on Chess24 I will try to watch out what's going on. Anyway, we're seeing Sidar just developing the pieces bishop c3 and black pushes e5, which makes some sense now when the bishop on c3. If the knight was on c3, this would obviously leave a big hole on d5. And for those of you who think I talk too much by myself, I might get someone in here if people walk in, and maybe they finish their games and they will help me do some commentary. We will see. This seems to be the position right now, and I'm gonna say white slightly better due to this 3 against 2 on the queen side. But it's a complicated position. I think Stupak is fine with that. He can at some point push f5, e4 and try to blockade the bishop on g2. So I'm gonna say that white's slightly better, but it's nothing special. b3 is played very solidly. Let's move on. Should we... Yeah, let's quickly take a look at Majorov's game against Kenniskog. Kenniskog got a rough pairing. He got a double black, I think. Did he play black this morning? Yeah, he played black against Jungmin. And Majorov goes for this move, knight d2, which I know is designed against King Grimfeld players. Obviously Majorov knew Kenniskog has played Grimfeld. He has played it 3 times so far in the tournament, I think. And this is a nice way to play against the Grimfeld players, because the natural move here, bishop g7, allows e4. And suddenly we're not getting a Grimfeld. We're stuck in, what do you call it, a modern defense? A Pirk defense? I've never really learned how to pronounce it. But basically white is never gonna push c4. He's gonna put the pawn on c3, bishop d3, castle, and it's not that white's better. He might be, slightly, but it's more about the fact that usually players don't play the modern defense, and they are probably not used to playing that type of position. I think I misspoke earlier actually. I think it's kind of designed against both King's Indian and Grimfeld players. Because d5 might be the best move, but King's Indian players might not be used to playing this way either. I'm actually not sure who's tricking who with this move, knight d2, but I know it's a good move. Kenniskog, true to his style, goes for d5, and here we see that white's point is he's gonna push b4. And he's basically just taking a lot of space on the queen side. He's gonna play bishop b2, c4, maybe a4, and just take space. And this is not a stupid variation. There are a lot of grandmasters, top grandmasters, that play like this. And Kenniskog, I don't know how well he knows this variation, but he plays like a true Grimfeld player. He makes c5 work as quickly as possible by provoking white's pawn to b5. We know that we cannot support this pawn. You can just take and we cannot recapture it because the rook on a1 is hanging. So b5 makes a lot of sense here. c5 is played and white takes on c6 with a pawn. So we get a different type of structure here. And I think that white's gonna claim that this is probably some kind of theory, but I think white's gonna claim that this pawn on a5 doesn't really belong there. And eventually maybe white will push c4, the pawns on c4 and d5 will be traded, and white will try to use this weakness on b5 and b6 on the queen side. Bishop e2, castles, black pushes a4. I have no idea whether this is prepared or not, but I'm gonna say it's easier to play white here, unless black is prepared and knows this position, because white has natural moves, bishop a3, c4, put something on b1 perhaps, or b3, queen a4. So these moves like a4 and rook e8, they don't really seem correlated to me. Sorry, they didn't play that. Bishop b5. And here Kenneth Skog fought for a long time and he played knight e4. And this is usually what you do if you don't know what you're doing. You kind of like to force the position. Not saying it's a bad move. It's definitely forcing things because it's threatening this nasty fork on c3, so takes looks critical to me. But here, what's going on here really? I'm gonna say knight d2. I think knight g5 and there's e5, and black has a lot of pressure against d4. But I haven't calculated. This might be annoying or something. I'm not sure. Knight d2 seems to make some sense to me, and if e5, we might just be able to, if we feel boring, just play c3 and try to maintain this nice pawn structure in the center. And still feel like it's easier to play white here. I also feel how it's difficult to talk when I'm used to having someone to talk with, and now I'm talking by myself. I feel... Oh, this is actually happening in the game. Yeah, knight d2 was played in the game. And here, of course, e5 like makes a lot of sense to me, and I think white is simply gonna play c3, which is very solid. And of course, if you take, I'm gonna recapture with the c pawn, and just rook b1, queen c2, knight c4. People are running. Let's take a look at, for me, the most interesting game of the match. Jungmin Seo is playing Hampus Sørensen. Hampus was actually my first student. His father basically called me and asked if, I can't remember if I was supposed to help him with openings or with chess base, but either way we started looking at openings primarily together, and I think looking at the way he's playing, this was like 5 years ago, and looking at how strong and good in the opening that he has become, I'm actually quite proud of my work with him. I have to say that I haven't recommended the variation he plays today. It was barely known back then, but I think he's showing some really good play and opening knowledge. And I know that this opening is one of the most provocative openings of 2019. I can't recall who played it first, but I know that Magnus Carlsen has played it in serious games, and I also know that, like I usually say, Niels Grandelis has played it himself. So if I'm gonna try to explain this move, h6, basically you're waiting for white to play bishop f4, and then you want to respond with bishop d6 and trade the bishops. And if you would, let's say, go knight f6, there's a big chance white will go bishop g5. And this isn't really that clear, because black would be really happy to trade these bishops, the one on f8 against the one on g5. So after h6, it's sort of a waiting move, forcing white to put the bishop on f4 and then just trying to exchange it, like Hampus did here. And I think these a6 lines is a product of Magnus Carlsen, because he really tried to popularize this variation, and he has done a great job of doing it. But to my mind, it will almost always just lead to this kind of Carlsbad position, where white tries to say that a6 and h6 a little bit not the greatest moves, but they're not bad, of course, but maybe not most useful moves in this type of position. And I'm a bit surprised to see Jung-Min playing so quickly in the opening. I'm not sure if he has prepared or seen this before. But we see here queen c2 plays all their logical moves, rook c1. Perhaps he's trying to force black to play c6 sooner or later. And okay, I'm a bit surprised that he voluntarily gives up the bishop. But this is one of the key ideas of white playing queen c2 early on, that you cannot go bishop f5 anymore. But also bishop d3 would be a normal move, I would believe. So we have a standard Carlsbad position where white usually tries, like we mentioned earlier, there's sort of an arrow here, f2, e3, d4, which means white's gonna play on the queen side. And this is usually done by a so-called minority attack, by pushing a3, b4, and trying to push b5, even though it's difficult in this type of position. Maybe trying knight a4 and get the knight into c5. And on the other hand, black's pieces are, the pawns are pointed this way, which means black should play on this side of the board. And of course develop maybe knight d7, rook e8, if possible, prepare knight e4, maybe knight f8 and move the knight towards the king side. It's sort of interesting. You also have to defend on this side of the board, or should you move your pieces to this side of the board? It's a very dynamic and positional opening at the same time. For example, a move like rook fd1 is not what I would have played. I would have perhaps played a3 or knight a4, because this might be, well, a little bit slow. I don't think white wants to push e4 to get this isolated pawn on d4 anyway. And the same goes to rook d8. To me, the rook should be on e8. And we see here white going for b4 and black stopping it with a5. Queen e7, queen d2. So white is a little bit preparing a move like b4 or knight c5 and eyeing this pawn on a5, which might turn out to be a weakness later on. I'm not completely sure what to play on knight e4, which looks like the most sensible move to me. Queen e1 looks a little bit artificial to me, so maybe he is sufficient with taking on e4 and trying to push in this type of position, but it's not easy. Let's say knight c5, if the computer will let me. Knight takes, and if rook takes, you can't play b6, but you can play a4. And I don't know if he's gonna try and push in this type of position, but it's not gonna be easy to win this type of when it's that many pieces left. I'm gonna take a short break, and we'll be back soon with the rest of the games, but we've looked at the top 3 games, and those are the most important one for norms and the standings. So we'll be back in a while. Okay, I think I'm live again. And yeah, I just took a small break to see what's going on, and yeah, the games have started in an interesting way. I'd say Silhard is doing well at the opening. Mayorov Kenniskog, I think Mayorov is doing well, and in Jungmin's game, I think it's very equal in that game, but of course Jungmin needs to win, which means this is gonna be a long game. Should we move on and see how Blomqvist is doing? Blomqvist is very much in the fight for the third prize after the two players from Belarus. Sorry, I'm getting a bit tired. It's the 9th and final round, and I might be lacking some sleep. So, interestingly, Jokstad sticks with Taimanov, which he has been playing a lot during the last couple of years. I think 2 or 3 years since he started playing the French. And it's also an opening that Eric has played a lot himself with black. I think he started off playing like this counter defense with a6, and from there it has spun off to all kinds of different Sicilians, like the Dragon or the Najdorf, and of course the Sicilian as well. And I asked him before the game what he's gonna play against the Taimanov, and he said, well, I might play this move g3, and it seems like he's going for it. I'm pretty sure there was a game with g3 earlier in the tournament, but I can't recall by whom. But I do know it's a very interesting move, and I like that Jokstad has looked up these, and he knows some stuff here, because this move he plays here, h5, is quite new, I believe. I mean, it's not brand new, but it's definitely something that has shown up these last couple of years. And don't ask me about why and how this move h5 came to be, but I do know that it's supposed to be one of the best moves nowadays. I have a feeling d6 used to be one of the most popular moves, but there were some ideas by taking, I think, and at some point pushing e5. I'm not a Sicilian player myself, so you have to bear with me here. After h5, obviously you can play moves like h3 or h4, but okay, h4 gives up g4 pawn square, which isn't very nice, but instead he goes for knight f3, which is sensible, stopping h4 at the moment. It's a bit too much to just give it up at the moment, I think. So we get this natural. I don't really know whether this is theory or preparation, but definitely I think Eric is aware of this move h5, and I don't know, it seems they play the usual moves. Black keeps developing naturally. The knight on f3 looks a little bit strange because it's usually not there. a4 stopping b5, and now natural moves, I would say. Rook d1. But here we get a move that might be I mean, it's a move you have to be careful, but even though it's a very typical idea in the Taimanov, you go knight e5, and once again it's interesting that on both board 1 and 4 we have doubled e-pawns, which is usually not something you see every day, except in like an Italian game or something. But I think this is a different story than the other game, because in this particular position, of course, the 4 against 5 on the king side isn't really great for black, but what is important is these 2 pawns in the center actually control a lot of squares, and that white's pawns on the queen side are not very flexible compared to the board 1, because, well, these pawns might just turn out to be weak. For example, we can't move the knight because of this weakness. I would much rather, if it was possible, put my pawns on a2, b2, c4, similar to what we had in that game. So black is gonna do everything he can. He might play bishop b4, bishop c5, bishop d4, maybe push b5, just try to get rid of this knight on c3, which isn't very well placed now. White plays h4 and stabilizes the bishop on g5. Bishop c5 is played, threatening knight g4 as I can tell, and it would be interesting to see this pawn structure arise. I can't recall having seen such a pawn structure before. I don't know what to call it. It's Harry Potter blitzmark, like the scar he has on his face. I don't know. Either way, I don't think this is very good for white, considering this bishop will be a monster. My turn on d4, the king is very safe on, for example, e8, e7 or g7. And yeah, I think this isn't something you should go. So bishop f3 protects against knight g4, queen b6, and I mean, I'm not used to these positions, but I would, if I had to pick, I would pick black here. I think Jogstad has played the opening well, and he has pressure on b2, he has pressure on c2, pressure on c3. What I do know Eric is definitely looking at is grabbing a pawn and one on h5. And the attentive reader will know that, what did I say reader? I feel like I'm in a book. The attentive listener will know that black can recapture this pawn with taking here, I think. Getting rid of the queen from e2, and then taking this bishop on h5. And then the position has changed quite a lot, so we have to actively try to figure out what's going on. But I have this light feeling that white is doing quite okay here. I mean, this bishop is quite bad, but so is this knight. And I feel like maybe if white can push the h-pawn at some point, maybe double rook d6 and so on, white might have some slight pressure here. Black will of course maybe try to advance with f5, bishop c6, and try to get that bishop active. But I'm not completely sure. One move I would be careful about is, however, taking this pawn, because this knight doesn't have a really good way of going. I mean, there's no knight d5. You can't really go somewhere fun. Knight a2 isn't great, I would say. So then, I don't know, queen d3 might be a move. Attacking here, leaving this one, preparing rook b. And then we have to look at moves like bishop d4, and I mean, everything is hanging. I can't really figure everything out here. Rook d3 was played in a game, which I actually kind of like. So, by defending this knight on c3, I think with this move, it will be rook b1, and a nasty discovery by the knight, probably knight d5, and take on f6, unless there is something even more terrible I can come up with. And I got a message in the break that there was something wrong with the transmission on Chess24, which might not be great, but I don't know what to do about it, actually. Where did all the pieces go? Okay. Once again we see this tricky move b6, which isn't very popular, but apparently it has been played several times in this tournament. But this move f3 has been considered one of the most challenging moves, at least for black theoretically. The thing is that people usually don't know anything about these tricky lines like b6, so they play knight f3 and g3 and so on, like it's nothing. But this is a serious try of actually refuting black's opening. But this move d6 is completely new to me, and to be honest, I am not a big fan of it. What I do know is that this is how I usually play it. e5. You just grabbing those dark squares by force. Knight e7, and then next move is gonna be knight g6. You're gonna play bishop c5, maybe a5, and that bishop is gonna be great on c5. And no, this move d6 is sort of new to me, at least. Knight c3, e5, d5. And to me this looks like a very strange Samish King's Indian, where I don't know if the bishop should be on e7 there. I don't know what the pawn is doing on b6 either. You really don't want to play bishop b7 at least, because I think those pawns on d5, e4, f3, g2 are gonna tell the story of how bad this bishop can be on b7. So okay, let's just quickly move forward, and we see knight h5. Interesting, and here we see Kulkarni's idea. He's gonna prepare bishop g5. So he's gonna take this bad bishop, put it on g5, and trade it for the good one on e3. And well, it seems like he succeeds quite well. He trades everything on g5. He gives black the open h file, and if anyone is better here, I would say black. So I'm not a big fan of how Leo handled this position, to be honest. But to be honest, he has played several. This isn't the first time he plays a bit passively, to be honest. He needs to defend against this doubling along the h file now. Rook f2, knight e7, king d3, knight h5. And I'm guessing black's idea is he's gonna play g6 and he's gonna push f5. And white is gonna suffer in this game. I can't recall what I predicted before the round, but he's under pressure. On the other hand, he can defend quite stubbornly, so I think still that he has decent chances of making a draw, actually. But I don't think white has any serious winning chances in this kind of position. How about Axel playing Dev? We have another endgame with an open rook file. I think we saw this similar position before. Queen b3. I think we've had this position before. Was it Axel who played that game? I cannot recall, but I think in that game that black actually took on c4 at some point. No, it was a Jogstad game, I think. And we got this structure where I think I can't recall who played. I think Jogstad played one of the players, but I think black played really well in the opening, and even though I'm not a big fan of this opening, I think black was just clearly better the way he played it. He jumped into c5 or something, and e4. This type of endgame, pushing a6 as well, I think it can turn out to be quite uncomfortable to defend. But it also has to do with what you do with the double pawns. If you handle them, if you don't treat them very well, they might end up being weak. White takes the bishop pair. h3 makes a lot of sense as well. Excuse my sore throat, I've been talking way too much already. Castles, so far nothing special, and this bishop g5 is sort of... I'm not gonna say I like the move, because I haven't looked at it enough, but I think it's sort of provocative that this bishop on g5, you always want to be able to challenge it with h6, but with this pawn structure you can't really. And if you go a move like rook h5 even, you can push h4 and you're not getting rid of the bishop so easily. Okay, so rook b8, and white plays d4, which might be okay. Young players jogging outside the window. d4, e4. We see here that white is changing the position quite a bit, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna take with the knight here because he wants to preserve his bishop pair. Most likely we're going for this. And how do we evaluate this? I'm gonna say that white's slightly better here. He has the bishop pair. It counts for something. A long-term plan if black does absolutely nothing is you play king g2, you push h4, rook h1, h-file, and you just open up the h-file where black is sort of weak. And this is a typical idea when black has these double g-pawns. The reason why I paused was a little bit that maybe I was looking at this move c5, and I was worried about if something like this starting to happen. The bishop is attacked, the pawn is attacked, you have to go bishop c2, suddenly bishop e5, and you need to protect this one. Obviously I know that there are tactic ideas like pushing b4 here, but I still feel like you need to be careful here. c5, maybe you shouldn't take, maybe you should, yeah, I don't know. c5 might be a good try, but it also looks very ridiculous to have your rooks like this having to defend the pawn on b7. Excuse me for being extra tired this round. I'm not used to talking this much by myself, so it feels like I'm talking a lot. There's a knight on e3, and that's usually not good. But how bad is it? Let's see. This is a Khan variation, and it's not Kuzuksari, but the actual opening called the Khan with a6. And this is one of the old main lines with bishop a7, which I think became unpopular due to the move queen g4, if I recall correctly, and people started simply to realize that the bishop was missing. Something had to be done about this pawn on g7, so people played g6. And here I actually think they didn't even wait for knight f6, they just went back immediately. And after, let's say, I don't know what they play here, d6 maybe? I think there is this move bishop e3, and I think I saw a game a couple of years ago by Hui Fan where she played knight a3, maybe put the knight on c4, long castled, and there's quite a big risk that the pawn on d6 is gonna be bad. But instead, white doesn't really go for this critical stuff. Castles, d6. I think this isn't really the most dangerous try. King h1. It's more classical development going on here. I'd say that black is doing completely fine here, and I think he has some experience playing the Khan from before. Well, I spot an idea, and that is, can we take on b5 here? With the obvious idea of capturing here, attacking this queen, and when it walks away to perhaps b6, we will take on d6, and we actually have 3 pawns for the piece, and the king have to move. I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit afraid here with black. It doesn't seem that simple to stop white's initiative. There's a lot to calculate, like white pushing e5 or taking on f6, taking on c8, and so on. Even bishop f2 at some point. The pawns themselves aren't really that dangerous at the moment. They're not really walking. But there is an initiative, there are 4 pawns, so this is definitely something you could look at more closely. This might be dangerous, actually. A3 is more... I'm still looking at taking on b5 and seeing if it's worse or better, or... It's still extremely interesting to take on b5, but we see here that white doesn't really go for this. She plays the normal developing moves and then pushes e5. So things are starting to become tactical, because white really wants the square on d6, but black just takes the pawn. Bishop g3, knight e3. I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't trust this for white at all. The knight on e3 looks strong to me. You can even jump to f5 if something turns out to be strong. And white obviously relies a little bit on this pin along g3 to c7, but I think you need more than this. So, to be totally honest, I don't believe white has enough compensation. I believe Edwin is doing very well in this game. Oh. Okay. Hugo, my student, plays an opening. I've studied with him a little bit. This is once against the Khan, but white plays c4, so he plays the... it's sort of a Maroczy bind position where you go c4, knight c3, and we had a similar game by Axel Bukwale in this tournament with this move bishop e2 as well. And you might recognize this, all of these moves, b4, and I think maybe we actually had this completely same position in Axel's game, where he out of nowhere jumped into d5, c takes. He went into this, and he didn't win. He lost quite badly with white. There's some difference here, but I can't recall exactly which one. So instead, Hugo pushes f5, allowing the knight to jump into e5, but you're really attacking this point on e6 instead, hoping that you will... I thought his idea was to play queen h3 actually. So this doesn't seem very strong to me. It seems like he lost time. Takes, takes, takes. Knowing Hugo, I know that he loves his endgames, and I feel like white is simply losing a pawn here. No, I don't think this position can be saved, unfortunately for Hugo. This was a bit sloppy. I didn't like this f5 unless it can work with queen h3 immediately, because like he played it, he just lost time. So I actually don't believe in it for white. How can Stupak's position is suddenly good? It wasn't supposed to be good, was it? We left here and he went for this plan that I just mentioned. He pushed f5 and e4. Maybe I actually just didn't consider how dangerous the position was, because white needs to play f3 and he needs to go for this, and this isn't much fun for white because this pawn on e3 is weak. The black queen is gonna end up on c5. And there are some weaknesses on f2 and e3 and so on. Siddharth is under pressure. But like I said, that guy has more than 9 lives. He has survived some really bad positions this tournament, and here he is playing on the first board for an IM norm. That's fighting right there. Jungmin, give us a Swedish IM norm. So he goes for an interesting idea here. First of all, knight e8 doesn't strike me as the best plan. Knight e4 strikes me as the best plan. And this move b3 has a very particular idea, I would say. We see that black is doing well here, putting pieces on right squares. The knight on d6 is actually very well placed. I just liked it to go to d6 through e4. Rook is supposed to be on e8. I don't know why it went to d8 in the beginning, but here it is. Bishop d3, f5, and like I mentioned before, he's playing for the square on e4 for the knights. And well, knight c5 is played. And should I try to figure out what his major plan here is? I thought his idea was to play this attacker, but I still haven't figured out what's wrong with a4 for black, actually. Oh, he didn't take any game. He played knight f6. Which I have to say looks absolutely reasonable as well. And I don't think black is in any way worse here. And if anything, maybe white is the one who should be careful. But I feel like, okay, let's push b4. And let's take this one once. And let's just jump in here. And I think white should let it be on e4. And just argue that those knights are standing in each other's way. Because of course black wouldn't be thrilled about having to go for this structure, because this pawn on b7 is so weak. But if black's just a little bit careful, I think he is absolutely fine. At least he might even be a little bit better, but I think both positions are very solid here. Yeah, we need to take a look at this one. Sorry for being tired, but it's a long day, okay? e5, c3 as expected. He took, and queen g5 is a very explosive way of facing things, because you're threatening this bishop on b5 if you're not careful, and you're threatening bishop h3 with some mating ideas on g2. So white actually took, and I'm starting to perhaps regret what I mentioned before, because if he has to take, then suddenly black's bishop might be good, the one on c8 actually. Of course the pawn on c6 is weak, but the good bishop might be able to compensate for it. So white plays king h1, queen h4. I don't know if the plan here is to play perhaps even rook a5, rook h5. That would be a cool plan. Knight c4 keeps developing. Bishop g4. The good thing is that the knight on c4 prevents rook a5. And I feel with this move, the Theodore plays rook a d8, he still wants to play rook d5, which Mayorov tries to prevent with bishop d6. And I love Theodore's move here. c5, bishop takes c5, and come on now, rook d5. He's going for mate, and I love it. I have absolutely no idea whether it works or not, but I love the attitude. This looks like a really fun game to follow actually. So I'm gonna stick with this one for a while and figure out what's going on. So let's start off. Rook d5 with the idea rook h5 and checkmate. How can we prevent this? Actually, there might be a boring solution to all of this, and that's to play bishop d6. But I really hope we have something more fun against this. Actually, that might be just a bus killer. It looked a lot of fun to play c5, but I can't make it work. How are you gonna prevent bishop d6? It feels like the mate shouldn't be that far away, but still it is. I should definitely go to sleep earlier today. So why the sacrifice? I mean, you're up a pawn. You can even grab another one on a4, but I don't think you're gonna be too greedy. If you don't get mated, White is gonna win this one. I actually don't see a good defense. Rook d5, rook bishop d6, and I feel like if this bishop ever reaches g3, there's no way black is mating. And I don't know how to prevent it without giving this one up, and I don't want to give that up. No. He's thinking here for a while, and I think that's a good decision, but I can't really see. It looked so nice to play c5, so I really want to make it work, also because I know Theodore, but so far I'm not convinced. I should try to figure out if anyone else can join me. Ah, okay, in Kvalo's game he actually went for c5. I admired the decision, even though I think it looks ridiculous to have these rooks here. Because it's not gonna be easy to untangle these. That's a rook d1. Takes. Bishop e5 looks correct to me. Rook d2. Knight c5, and once again we have a position where I think White should avoid this. We want to be able to go bishop c2, but here black can just take on b2. It shouldn't be possible to give up the bishop pair and put the rooks like this, so I just want to find a solution to this move c5. Then I'm happy. Obviously I don't want to play d5 either, because black can perhaps even play... Well, at least he can play e5 and block everything, which I don't really want to allow, because I have the bishop pair and black can play b5 at some point. What to do? One safe move could be this move, bishop e3. This might be okay, but I wanted to keep my bishop pair if it was possible. Now we might get to trade it. This move c5 I like. Not so easy to defend against. Young Min just walked by. Did anything interesting happen there? It doesn't seem so. They're just playing a normal position. Hugo. No, he's trying for something, but I don't really know what he's trying for. He's attacking g7, which is something. Actually, let's go back. Why can't he take on g7? So knight takes. Okay, it's probably something with bishop g5. Not that I completely understand what's going on here. It looks strange. I don't see like a huge reason not to play like this. So rook f1, and we thought for a while, so there's obviously something I'm missing here. But then I'm too tired of finding. Yeah, this is strange to me. Can black simply play g6 to not give up that pawn? I mean, it looks risky to give up all those squares around the king, but maybe you give up some kind of activity here. Rook f6, you're threatening a mate here. If you go rook here, maybe I can go knight d4 and I will start attacking those pawns. Maybe it's not completely hopeless here for white. He needs to try something very active. Savita. Oh. Okay, knight e3 was met with queen h5. So obviously there's a pin, g3 against c7, and I thought that f6 could be a move, but I kind of realized that Savita's idea could have been to sacrifice, or could it? Maybe it couldn't have been. I thought this, and I thought rook takes, because there's a nasty pin and the king is weak, but this looks, well, not so good for white. I don't think you should be in this pin with this bishop and a7, so this is probably not working. But f5, and white just plays rook f3. So the move that strikes me as interesting is take the rook, take here, take on e1, and knight d6 surely can't work, because I will take here and there must be a checkmate here somewhere. Knight g4. Isn't this checkmate when I give up my knight? This is checkmate. My program tells me to. So I don't know what to do here actually. The knight needs to move. I simply don't think it works. I think black is winning. And I suddenly realized that this is the idea. With, of course, if you take queen g6, and we probably have a perpetual check here. We might even have a win for white if he picks up all these pawns and bishop e5 and so on. So this is it's a very nice idea. So, but does it work? Let's see if I go king h8. Because if you take the rook, take, and this is still checkmate. Oh, sorry, I need to take on g2 first. That is a nice mating picture. There's no easy way to defend upon g2, as far as I can see either. I don't know, I can't see how to do this. Has anyone written anything in the chat? No, nothing. And just so you know, I can only look at the chat on Chess24. And I'm not completely sure that that the broadcast is working on Chess24. Siddharth, should I say struggling? I'm not completely sure he's struggling, but he shouldn't be better because this pawn on e3. No. How about Jungmin? How is his norm doing? Okay, we left here. Queen c2. A lot of maneuvering stuff going on here. So he pushes with black, pushes black back, bishop f1. Do we like the fact that white has played f3? Because it's always double-edged to play a move like f3. Usually you don't want... You want a lot of pieces to be left when you play f3, so you can push e4 at some point, and I don't think that's the case here. And you want, like with few pieces left, it's a lot more risky to play f3. On the other hand, I'm not sure how important this weakness on e3 is, but I have to be honest, I don't think Jungmin has played his position very well. Even though it may still be around equal, I think that black has played it a lot better than white has so far. But it's very complicated, it's gonna be a long game. Knight d7. And I was about to say that white should perhaps consider keeping the knight. Well, he could go b4. Because maybe then black doesn't want to take on c5, but otherwise knight d3 might be a reasonable move. And if this knight moves, you can jump into e5. Did he play knight d3? No, no update. Hugo. Bishop d3 looks like a good move. Not completely sure about that one. How about Savita? He played queen f7? So he just wants... okay, I see. That's interesting. So if you take knight, it's gonna take, so it's not hanging, and then basically saying that white is stuck here along this pin, which it seems to be. This can't really do anything good. Take. And you don't even have a pawn for the exchange, so black is winning here. I thought my line was at least nicer, but this might be better. I thought all the mating patterns with bishop takes g2 and with the bishop on a7 was a lot of fun. But this might just win. So Savita lost this morning to Siddharth and might lose again in this final game against Edwin. Axel, okay, this is exactly what I said white should avoid. I didn't like d5, because e5, g4, of course, positionally is a sound move, you want to prevent f5, but allowing him to play b5, to me it's sloppy. To me there are only 3 weaknesses here, and they're all whites. Knight b6 might come at some point, creating weakness here. This pawn is about to get lost if black just takes on c4. And suddenly I don't wanna be... I wouldn't recommend taking white anywhere. I'm gonna be black, because I think d5, which is played, is terrible positionally. I think he can do something much better than d5 here. Then finding out which move that is, I'm not as good as, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, in worst case, just take on c5 and play that position. It's not horrible. But this d5 I don't like at all. Now I think Axel needs to damage control here. Still the same type of position. I think black is going for f5. Nothing new to say. How about Eric? I thought black was doing quite alright here. But this I like. If white can succeed with this, I will suddenly enjoy his position a lot, because that knight on c3 and that unharmonious structure he had was the big problem. But apparently he can't actually take on b2. Probably there's rook b3 picking up the piece, or perhaps even better, rook b1 actually. So he cannot take on b3, which means that suddenly black has to retreat, and back you go. And suddenly we have a different position here. And I think white got somewhere by pushing these pawns and moving the knight, but I'm not completely sure the problems are over, because this is still a problem. You want to be able to push it forward, but still b4 is a weakness. Knight b2 and b5, so you sort of fix this pawn on c3 as a weakness. Takes, queen e3, and white is just playing around it and stating that the pawn on c3 isn't that weak, and he's gonna penetrate on a7, and yeah. Okay, bishop d8 is played, so obviously if we take on c3, take on f6, and I'm gonna take the bishop on d7 and win. That doesn't work. Same about castling, I will take on f6 and d7. So bishop d8 is played, and probably this bishop is heading towards b6. But this king is still stuck there. And I want to be able to use my bishop on f3 somehow. I'm not completely sure how. Where is it going? No, I think bishop d8 is a good move. I can't see anything immediate. I was looking at bishop e3 for some reason. Probably he's in time to castle. Bishop c5 is now nothing, just rook e8. Rook d6. This might just be temporary activity. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but maybe rook a6. Excuse me for my tiredness. It's not that easy to do commentary all day long. Knight d3 looks like a sensible move because there's a pawn on e5 hanging, and bishop b6 is probably met by queen b8 when this pawn will fall. So let's look at this move. And now it strikes me as interesting to take here and try to play knight c5, just attacking this bishop on d7 as much as possible. Obviously f3 is hanging as well, but I think the bishop on d7 is more important at the moment. And this is a big problem for black, actually. Knight d3 seems to be the good move, and black needs to find something good here. So you don't want to lose this pawn. How about bishop c7? The knight c5 seems to make a lot of sense to me. Has he played? He played knight d3 in the game. Well played, Eric. So this knight on c5 still stops castling. Bishop b6 is still met by queen b8. What happens if the extremely positional bishop c8? Here I think something like takes bishop bishop e2, with the idea of when you very well do castle, I'm gonna take on b5, queen takes, I'm gonna take on c7, and look at this bishop, it's completely dominated at the moment. Maybe Eric is actually pushing here due to the weakness of this e5 pawn. I am not sure how to defend that one. I don't know if it helps if you can recapture with this pawn, because knight c5 and oh crap. Okay, I screwed up. You know what, I need some more coffee anyway. I'm gonna take a short break and I'll be back in a while. I definitely need some coffee. Sorry. Okay, I'm back and I got my coffee. So hopefully I will be able to do some real commentary this time. Sorry, I'm extremely tired. But we will try to figure out what's actually going on in these games. Siddharth, Stupak, we need to go back a while to see what actually went on here. And when he played this f3 and he got this pawn structure with this pawn on e3, I wasn't that thrilled for his position. I thought black was slightly better here actually. And that's an evaluation I think I'll stick to. Knight e5. So if we get this endgame that we seem to get in this position, we see that the bishop on d7 should be bad because all of those pawns are on light squares, e4, f5, g6 and so on. But it should also make the bishop on g2 good, but it's actually not. I think it's a terrible bishop because those pawns, even though it's the wrong color, they're actually hemming that bishop and it can't really go anywhere fun. It can go bishop f1 and hope to try c5 at some point to actually make it useful. But at the moment it's not very good. King f7 looks very sensible, trying to kick that rook back, stopping rook e7 of course. And we see here that white plays c5 in order to open up and possibly play bishop f1 eventually. Now I'm gonna be honest, I think white has decent drawing chances here, but there is an issue that in rook endgames, for example, if black were to get a rook to a2 or d2 and somewhere around here, this pawn structure around the king isn't very great. The king can't go up anywhere. And that's an issue. And I think black is better here, but it's not very clear. Probably rook c8 looks sensible to me, just pinning that pawn. So Stupak is slightly pushing, but it's not that clear, I think. Let's go back to this game, because I was so thrilled when I saw this move c5, and then I took the pawn and I realized it's probably not that much. Bishop takes, and I thought the fantastic idea was to put the rook on d5, but probably the bishop will simply end up on d6 again, and then g3, and there's no mate as far as I can tell. So rook e6 was played, but this smells of desperation. Rook ab1, h5. Yeah, I don't think black's attack is actually going anywhere, so this is probably just a pawn up. h4, and here is a very important moment where I think white really needs to play this move h3, because if black is allowed to push h3 himself, well, he's gonna have problems protecting the king on the light squares, especially f3, g2 and so on. So I really think he should play h3, probably bishop f5, and black's next moves are going to be g5 and g4 in order to checkmate the white king. It shouldn't work objectively. Objectively, I don't believe in black's position at all, but it's his try, definitely. He needs to go for this, otherwise he will simply lose on the other side of the board. But it's shady for Kenneskog, unfortunately. And Jung-min has a position I'm not too... Oh, no. What did I do now? Sorry. There we go. He got a position that I'm not too thrilled about, because around here I thought, fine, white's not better, but he shouldn't allow this trade on c5. I really thought they should go back to play knight d3, because the move he played a4, takes knight f7. I think it's a great decision by Hampus. I think this is terrible positionally for Jung-min. This pawn on e3 is most likely just a long-term weakness. Keep in mind that white actually not only needs to draw this position, but win this position. I don't think that was a silent draw offer. I think knight f7, Jung-min would have played something completely different actually. So queen f6, and we see here that before it's too late, rook e8 coming, doubling on the e file against this weak pawn on e3. I think it's time to play e4, and he did. So f takes, rook a e8, and there is this issue. If you take on d5, there is this fork on f3. It's not really a fork, it's more of a discovered attack, but you get this rook on e1, which wins for black. So instead, Jung-min played queen d2, probably eyeing this pawn on h6 and a5. And my gut feeling tells me this is not great for white. I mean, black's position seems to exert a lot of pressure. The knight on e5 looks strong. But on the other hand, it's not easy to find always the best continuation. I feel like this is always a good move here. We can't really take here because of the fork on f3. So if we were to take here, we still wouldn't be able to take on d5 due to this knight f3. And therefore I think this endgame after h takes g5 should be quite pleasant for black, to be honest. And the thing that worries me the most is that a draw is simply not enough. Jung-min needs to win this game in order to score his iron norm, and I think he knows it himself. And this position doesn't strike me as very good at the moment. We will keep an eye on this one, because I really do hope for Jung-min's sake that he can win this game and get his first iron norm. Blomqvist. I actually looked a bit at this during the break, and it seems that I was perhaps a bit too pessimistic about white's position, because this is actually just very bad for black. I didn't really realize this myself, but those bishops are sort of dominated. Rook a6 is coming, rook a7 perhaps. I mean, the most clear move, I think, castles, rook a6, the bishop would have to probably go all the way back here. And like at any point, white could just take on f6 and take on h5. Your pawn up, b5 is still very weak. I think white has a fantastic endgame. So it appears that I completely underestimated white's position here. And I think it's a good thing that I don't play the Sicilian that much myself, considering how badly I evaluated this one. By the way, if you have any comments or anything, just write to me on Chess24 and I will try to answer all of your questions. Let's take a look at Leo's game. To my mind, he seems to be defending well, because either the rook goes away and white has the h-file, or he takes. And you can't really exploit the fact that these pawns are doubled very well. I mean, of course you can push g5, but realistically you're not winning this one. I think this position is a bit too closed, and I think a draw is a very reliable result to bet on in this position. So that might be the most equal game we have so far. There was another game where I didn't quite realize what white's idea was, but I like this idea of bishop d3 and taking with the bishop. I sort of underestimated this one as well. And I only looked at white's weaknesses, but I didn't realize how weak, for example, h6 was. And I do now, because black pushes f5, which doesn't strike me as very productive. It doesn't really do that much, I think. And yeah, the way actually simply playing it now very positionally and slowly f3 supporting the pawns, everything looks pretty good. At some point he can play rook a3 and double and try to attack this pawn on a6, and actually these pawns aren't that weak. due to those bishops standing there protecting them. And I think Axel is definitely still pushing quite well here. Hugo. We left around there, bishop d3, rook f3, bishop g6. So what happens if you grab this pawn? The most logical continuation to me would be rook c2. And I need to move my bishop. I mean, I hate having this kind of thing where the bishop needs to protect the knight and something needs to protect the bishop. It's usually not a great way of playing this, but if you don't grab this pawn and try to hold on to it, you're just a pawn down, and I don't think this way works. Look at the knight is now being dominated by this bishop. This bishop isn't doing that much anymore, so I think this is just a straight way towards a lost position. I think it's time to exchange this, and we have an endgame similar to the one Jung-min had against Jogstad, with the bishop pair, a pawn on d6 that is gonna go run with the help of the bishops. And White's position is simply bad. Most likely it's lost. I don't know if bishop e6 or e4 is the best. e6 looks sensible. Keep dominating the knight and eventually start pushing the pawn. And I think White should lose, unfortunately, for Hugo. What happened here? So queen e7 is played. Okay, you're attacking the pawn on c5, so queen takes a5. Knight g4 is played. Okay, so you basically triple here, just making sure that you will win back this pawn. And maybe there is some threat of queen h4 here, so if you go h3, looks like a sensible move. It's probably coming back here, and it's gonna take this pawn on e4. And Jung-min keeps fighting in a bad position. In a position where he really shouldn't. I don't really see how he's gonna drum up some winning chances, to be honest. I don't think his position is very good at all. And kudos to Hampus for actually playing a very good game. And it seems that Jung-min's nerves when it comes to finally scoring the norms haven't been great. Counting this in, this was definitely the clearest opportunity of a norm. He hasn't scored his first iron norm yet. I think the first opportunity was at the Swedish Championships, where he played really well. And with 2 rounds left, he played Hector and Pia Crumling. First of all, he had a winning position against Hector when he suddenly just went for a draw. And in the final game, he needed a draw against Pia to make an iron norm, but he lost very terribly in an exchange Slav with black. And then next case was the Swedish Team League, where he had a great opportunity once again. But with the white pieces against a 2100 player, he lost and blundered terribly in round 8, and therefore no norm was achieved. And then there's this case, where as far as I can see, he's not gonna win this game, unless Hampus blunders bad. But his position is so safe, there is no weakness, nothing you can play for. And I feel for Jung-min here. He knows that his position is bad. I can feel it the way he's running around. He's not very happy now. Blomqvist. Still the same position as the rook a1. I'll keep scrolling to see if I find something interesting here. I didn't play g5, but he played a5. Maybe white can play a4 and they can agree to a draw. That's maybe a bit inaccurate. If the knight comes to c5 somehow, you want to be able to protect everything with the king, but you're not. No, but of course everything is drawish, yeah. There's some good coffee. I really needed that coffee to wake up. Kvaløy, same position. Savita. Yeah, we haven't looked at Savita's game in a while. Playing Edwin. Yeah, this one we have to go back a while. After rook f3. I was so tempted into going for this. Take here. Take on e1. And if knight f6, going for a perpetual check. Simply king h8. Seemed to win it, as far as I could tell. But queen f7 is perhaps... I mean, it's winning itself. You're winning quite easily. I will get this endgame that I actually got on the board, where white doesn't even have a pawn for the exchange. So his chances of survival are extremely limited. Savita has defended many positions in this tournament. She failed to this morning and she's gonna fail today as well. And unless... No? Why does this keep happening? Why does Swedish juniors fail to play the best moves when they have a winning position? It feels like they kind of relax way too early. The position is still winning, of course, but it's sloppy. Bishop e5. Here I would definitely consider playing h5, securing the square in g4, and that would definitely, I think, force taking here and taking here. And this endgame should win. The knight on c5 is good, but it's not gonna defend like these two pawns very well. So I think it's not gonna be enough here. But as usual, fights well. She fights well. Hugo. Bishop takes. Aha. Okay, so he wants to go into this semi-colored bishop endgame, and g4 is nice technique to call it. Just putting all the pawns on the light squares. If you have the chance, maybe he will push b5 as well. King f7. He can play bishop f6 because white can never exchange the bishops and just eventually gobble up these pawns, walk with the king, walk with the pawn. I think black is gonna win this easily. Not to say Hugo definitely knows that he's lost here as well. But you know, these things happen. I think Khan played a good game. And yeah, he must have been some kind of wrong misjudgment or something. How about Siddharth? He needs to win for an IM norm, and he's not winning this one, I'm telling you. King f2. He should have decent drawing chances, I am telling you, but bishop takes, rook takes, rook d2, and this is a position where you probably most likely lose. Like rook b2, and you're a pawn up in the endgame. So yeah, no IM norm for Siddharth, but he can be happy with a fantastic tournament anyway. He has beaten three players with more than around 200 more rating points and 2 draws. So he can definitely be satisfied with this performance so far in the tournament. even though Stupak seems to win with the black pieces and go for a tournament victory together with Mayorov on 8 out of 9. They both drew each other and Jung Min and won all the other games, which is a great performance for them both, actually. They've gained in rating points a lot. Rook d2, yeah. This isn't gonna be a draw, at least. He's gonna lose. So let's see if he'll be joined by Mayorov. And it seems like it. That's no attack for black. It seems like the pawn on e4 is very weak. But f5... I thought knight b5 looks strong, but the idea of knight c7. And let's see, if you go bishop back, you can grab a second pawn. I don't think black's attack is gonna work. It's more desperate at the moment, actually. So Nikita Mayorov and Kirill Stupak will most likely share the tournament victory. Hugo a4 doesn't help. Black would push b5. What happened here? Okay, he played rook c1, going for this pawn, and then pushes h5. But she refuses to exchange on f6 here, actually. At this point, it might actually be a decent idea. If knight g4, you can just move the king upwards. It's not gonna be mate or anything here. She's fighting well from a very bad position, but I feel like it haven't been great technique by Edvin here. He could have won this game a long time ago. Especially if he had gone for my queen sacrifice, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Axel, similar type of position, and I was curious about this move bishop d3, because you really want black to want to take here, because if you get this structure, this is extremely weak, this is extremely weak, you get a lot of light squares. I don't think this pawn on b3 matters that much. The only problem is that black doesn't want to move these pawns at all. They should keep it that way, so king f6 probably runs into f4 when it's pinned. So rook f8 would be an option, but then white can probably simply improve his position. King g2, maybe rook a4. It's how I would try to treat this position, but there are of course alternatives. Okay, we have a final result here. Krevatin actually drew his game against Kulkarni after okay, didn't play a4, he played a3. But still, I don't think we need to see much more of this game. We could have gotten like take, and here it's a reasonable move to play c5, b5, and this is gonna be a draw, especially after g5. Okay, so actually let's go back to that game and let's sum up the tournament for these two young players. Krevatin, looking at his score, he can't he definitely couldn't have been very optimistic about his chances after 4 rounds having half a point, but he has sort of come together. He beat Jafferli, he beat Dev Shah this morning, and now a draw against Kulkarni. Feels like he really woke up a little bit. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's not satisfied with his performance in this tournament at all. And the players that he has beaten weren't extremely strong, but he fought well in the second half of the tournament, and he will try to come back and score even better next time. Kulkarni, let's see his score. He has played a lot of draws, lost 2 games, won 1 game. I still can't say he's too satisfied with this performance either. He has played many of the lower-rated players in this tournament. He has played Majorov and Stupak as well, lost those games. But he has drawn against a lot of rating-wise not the strongest players. So I think he's gonna work on his ability to win. Blomqvist was about to enter with his rook on a6, and this is exactly what has happened, and this bishop is not happy. I'm pretty sure, I mean, okay, king d6 is played, but come on, this is not how you want to put your pieces. And I don't even know, like, this bishop can't move, the king cannot move. What happens if bishop e2 when just trying to pick this one up? I think you need to protect it with rook b8, but now everything looks stuck. Can we get some kind of Zugswang or something? Maybe push f4, trying to get that king out of the way from protecting the bishop. Oh, actually knight d7 might hold things together here. King d6 played after 17 seconds. It feels like I mean, this must be lost somehow, but maybe in a slow way and not an immediate way, and people are still running around. Takes would keep the okay, how about bishop e2 now, and then rook b8. We can at least grab a pawn on h5, and this looks like a reasonable situation for white, because also the pawn on f7 is weak, and the h pawn can run in many lines, especially considering that these 2 bishops and these 5 pawns are gonna, I mean, these 4 pawns are gonna stop their own bishop from defending against the h pawn running. So, for example, if you go rook b6, I think you can even take and probably take on f7 and start running with your pawn here to make a new queen. So everything is looking nice for Blomqvist so far. How are you holding things together, you mean? You're fighting. So with knight takes here, show me your defensive setup. The problem is Hampus knows that Jung Min needs to win. Okay, actually I just blundered this. That was unfortunate. But the thing is that since both players are aware that white needs to win, black can actually afford to play very solidly in order to just limit the other player's chances. For example, when I was younger, there was this tournament in Denmark, and a very young talent named Rasmus Svane, who's now a 2600 Grandmaster, played in the GM group, and he played very well, of course, and in the final game he needed to win with black in order to score his IM norm. And back then he always used to play the French, and one of these Grandmasters he played against knew he needed to win with black. So what do you think he played? Obviously he took on d5, which is unfortunate psychologically, but it's chess, it's everything is allowed in chess and war and love. So I think Hampus can try to steer this game towards a draw, and with the knowledge that Jung Min will need to go crazy at some point if he wants the norm. But yeah, I don't really see. I feel like Jung Min is doing well to defend and make a draw, but winning this is gonna take something entirely different. Okay, I'm gonna stop using that one so you guys can actually see our chessboard. I'm gonna use this arrow instead. A3, F5. Nothing new here. White can grab another pawn if he wants to. We can see how Siddharth is defending on the first board against Stupak. And some people say that 4 against 3 is a draw on the same side of the board, but I can tell you that this pawn structure is not ideal. The pawn structure you want is this pawn back on F2 and this pawn on H4. And that's the, I don't know, can I make arrows here? No, I'll probably just mess everything up. Anyway, this pawn can never be moved back to F2. This one wants to be here, so I would say the black's plan is simply to go in with the king here. This one is of course extremely weak, and at some point if white, for example, tries to block king g4 with playing h3, maybe it's time to use another pawn to break things open, which h5. So should we see how well my prediction went? King g5, h4, okay, king h5, I think this is a time where you can drop everything here and just start running in with your king. King f3, you're threatening mate. King has to go into the corner or something. You can probably take this one. Maybe king f3, and the e pawn looks very dangerous. So this looks winning to me. So that's unfortunate for Siddharth, the great defender, even though he has actually lost 2 games, I see, but still. Let's go all the way back to the start. Why did Khan let white play b5? Probably because it doesn't matter. So king d5, and you can actually not play bishop e3 because bishop d4 just trades into an easily winning endgame. So probably time for white to resign soon, because black will just go king d5, king c4 and pick up this pawn. Still, Hugo made his first appearance here in such a tough tournament. It takes a lot of energy and preparation and psyche to play such a strong tournament, where in every round you keep facing players with at least 200 more rating points than yourself, and that's very demanding. So I think he gained some really good experience playing in this tournament. As usual, if you have any questions, write in the Chess24 chat. Otherwise I might not be able to see them. Or I should get the other chat up and running here as well. Let's see how Edwin's technique is going. Rook a1. Is this the position? Haven't they played any more moves? Maybe not. But I felt like provoking white to move the c-pawn is a good thing, because this bishop will become unstable, and let's say these two are exchanged, a3 will be very weak. So I think like rook d1, not c1. I want to play rook d1 to attack this bishop, and probably include this, and white will move this back to c3, and I still think this is a quite good winning chances. This pawn on a3 is quite weak. No messages so far. c4, rook d1 has been played in the game. But yeah. I think Edwin is gonna win this one, but he could have had much better technique than he had. Yeah, let's go further through the games. How about Axel? Has he played anything? King G2 is a move that I like. Simply very slowly improving the position, waiting for Blackfoot to do something. I think he made the right decision to just play King G2 here. This game's over. This is my own analysis. This didn't happen. King D6, what did you play? Bishop E2, Rook B8, and okay, if I know Eric well, he's gonna take the free pawn. And I don't. I thought I looked at this and I thought knight E7 saves everything for black. He can still grab a pawn, but suddenly you need to calculate like F6. Okay, I can take. But suddenly this knight is sort of okay. It's a pawn, but Bishop B6. I feel like white should have had better than this. Has this... No, I apologize. Rook B8 has been played, but F4 hasn't been played. I think, like I mentioned, knight D7 just seems to solve things for black there. So, like I mentioned, black... If I know Eric is gonna take on F6 and take on H5, and I think this is a good decision by Eric if he chooses to play this way. Yumin, Rook E5. He keeps improving the position a little by little. Rook F1. Knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, rook d4. Okay. Okay, I get it. He knows that he needs to win this. Hugo is here, but I expect that his result wasn't that great today, actually. But he knows that he needs to win, and if black just goes into this, then his king might be a little bit unsafe. And let's say, would you go for queen e3? No, because you can take, play rook f7 and take here, and you would defend b3 in a beautiful pattern. Rook d4 also was the final move before the time control, actually. But of course black doesn't need to take on d4 as well. Rook e2 looks sensible, but suddenly maybe rook f4 and white has some kind of play at least. I think he's defending well. I still have no idea who is gonna win this one, but he's moving closer. I'm worried about positions where he's gonna take on e4 and blacks can take with the pawn. Can turn out to be very dangerous for white, but if he pushes the pawn too far, it can also be lost, and then suddenly we're talking about winning chances for white. Even though I think Hampus is careful enough to not lose this pawn on e4, so I don't think white has any realistic winning chances still. But also, we will see what happens in the game. Here we have an annoying line if black is annoying, like queen g7, and white knows that if he trades it's a draw and he can't afford to make a draw. It might not even be a draw, black might be better. He must move the queen somewhere, and then maybe rook e4 being active. Ah, wait, hold on, but he played a move there. Let's go back to that game. He played rook d4, queen g7. where I assume white will take on e4. And let's look at this. If you take with the pawn, this pawn might become very dangerous, so I'm guessing rook e1 is a sensible move, and let's try and push it. And I still think this is uncomfortable. He has taken on e4. I think Hampus is going to take with the pawn, even though I don't think taking with the rook is necessarily bad. But maybe just move back the queen and play this. Try to play b4, b5. But d takes e4 simply looks considerably more aggressive and dangerous, to be honest. The good thing is with the queen on b4 you have some slight pressure against this pawn on b7, so the queen can't do anything. But I have a very bad gut feeling about this pawn on e4 for white. And Hampus is clearly thinking which one he should recapture with there. Rook takes is the safe alternative, d takes is... I think both should be quite safe, to be honest. Are people going into the... I think they get the next 30 minutes after 40 moves or something. It's round 9, so I should know, but... people usually think for a while when they have reached this move 40. Okay, we have a result. We have several results. Tupac has won his game. He is on 8 out of 9. He has won the tournament. At least he may share it together with Mayorov. But it's a great performance by Tupac for sure. And Siddharth, unfortunately, he needed to win today against Tupac to get the IM norm, but that's not an easy task. And no, I think he can be satisfied with this performance here anyway. Stupak, congratulations to a shared victory, at least shared. Finally we have Hampus. Why did I say Hampus? I mean Hugo. Bishop d4, king e2, bishop c5. There is no stopping king c4. And it's time to resign. Hopefully he wasn't too dissatisfied with his final game. It was actually a decent game. No huge mistakes in this game. More people are walking. Are they also done? Or... no new results. Where should I go? Savita. They have also passed move 40. And no decent position in sight for white. Axel against Dev. Did he play king? What? They are repeating moves here. Hopefully not forever. Let's see. So this is the position of the bishop c7. So king q2. And it seems to me like black can actually, how do you say, demand a draw? Claim a draw. Claim a draw is the phrase. Claim a draw after king g1 because of the threefold repetition that would arise if black would play bishop c7. So I think the correct way of claiming a draw, I hate rules, not only following them, no, but I'm never too interested in this. How do you do this correctly according to the rule book stuff? That doesn't really interest me. But I think the correct way to do things is to stop the clock. I mean, you write down the move, stop the clock, and you go get the arbiter who will check your claim, and if it's correct you will get a draw. I just saw Jung Min here. Why did he go for a draw? I have absolutely no idea. He has gone for a draw and I just can't figure out why. Because he needs to win this position. And he's not better, of course. He might be slightly worse, but he needs to win to make an IM norm. He's not upset or anything. But why didn't he play on? I simply don't know anymore. Okay, people are walking around and I'm confused. I'm not really sure what's going on or why he took the draw. Anyway, what is clear is that there are no norms to be achieved this year for anyone. Jung Min didn't win the final game against Hampus, he agreed to a draw, and Siddharth lost to Stupak in a position where Stupak actually played very good chess. So, has everyone reached move 40 actually? Mayorov, Keneskog. Keneskog is playing for some kind of tricks. F4. That's what I like when I'm desperate. Bishop H6. And so how many pawns are you down here? You're down actually only... It's just 2 pawns actually. You can grab this one on A4 but this one on F4. No, but there are no tricks absolutely whatsoever in this position. So I don't think a knight c3 is a nice way of just getting rid of the e4 pawn. So I think white is just completely winning in this game. I'm gonna need to reuse this one. There are only 3 games left going on. Blomqvist is playing Jugstad. What did he go for here? Ah, like I expected, he took the pawn. And that's the Blomqvist I know. And he takes another pawn. I recognize him. And this time he didn't take the pawn, but that's because his own pawn was hanging, so he defended his own pawn. F5 and bishop g6. So we will get to some kind of endgame here, where he's a pawn up. But it might count as 2 pawns, because... Let's see, takes and f takes. These 2 pawns aren't really that... useful, so it's more likely these 2 pawns that are just gonna roll down the board. And I don't think black can do much on this side of the board either. They're most likely to be exchanged or anything. King c4 isn't possible with the bishop here. e6 is weak. Rook a3 can be played in worst case scenarios. How about Edwin? 3 games left only. Knight d5. I think it's doing well here. If the bishop moves, let's say we move it to e5. Then actually I'm actually not sure what his plan is here, but he keeps running back and forth through the I mean, at least to my mind, it's sort of annoying when players are running in the playing venue, because everyone in the playing venue is gonna hear you. And hopefully this is a behavior that goes away. I wouldn't run to the playing venue even if I had 2 seconds left on the clock. Yeah, but this is move 46. Both players have a lot of time left. How about this game? Yeah, this is probably just completely lost. Isn't that a fork after knight c7? Or can you take on d4 and threaten this one? Or is there... I can take here and then check and take here. And I'm up 2 pawns, I think. So, yeah, white's just winning. Yeah, knight c7 has been played. And it doesn't really matter, I think. Okay, we might stick to this game for a little while because Theodore is simply running out of time soon. If the chess 24 clock is correct. Knight c7, what could he play here? And I expect there to be a move soon, because otherwise he should have run out of time. But I mean, if there is a move like queen a5, then maybe... Yeah, it's the same, we can just take on e8, knight f6, take on e4. Yeah, Jungmin's father didn't seem too satisfied with the results. And I can understand him. He's been fighting extremely hard to get his first IM norm. And it's a shame. So, yeah, only 3 games left. Queen takes d4 was played with 4 seconds to go. I assume white will take on e8 now, because it seems like the quickest way to get there. Take the rook. Knight f6 is a check. King g7, take this pawn. Maybe he's gonna take this pawn, and then finally white can take the pawn on h4, unless I'm mistaken, and this is 2 pawns up. I might miss something that is simply much better here along the way. This was simply the fastest way that I could see. Maybe even knight g4 here actually, because this bishop isn't very good, and queen c3 and so on, followed by knight f6, and black's king is about to get mated. Mayoro still has plenty of time on the clock. I think since everyone is past the time trouble, I am gonna go get a refill with coffee, and hopefully when I'll be back, games will be, well, not settled, but they have moved further. So I think I'm gonna take a small break, and I'll be back in a while. Okay, I'm back, and only one of those 3 games are actually finished. As I expected, 2 of the games were finished quite quickly. Mayorov is perhaps the most important thing here, that he won his game against Keneskog as expected, knight f6, and king h8 maybe wasn't the best idea, but okay, that's not wrong with king h8 was played in the game, and suddenly there's actually a checkmate on f8. Not sure what the program is slow at the moment, but there's a checkmate, which means that Mayorov and Stupak both got to 8 out of 9 points. I don't know what the tiebreak says in this tournament, but to me they're both winners. And in the other game, Savita played against Edwin Drost. And as expected, that bishop on b2 was quite weak, and the technique simply worked for Edwin, and he won a nice game. One of his best games, I think, in the tournament. He saved it the best until last. And finally, this was simply a checkmate as well, after rook f4. So finally we only have one game left, not important to who wins the tournament and so on. That will be between Mayorov and Stupak. I'm not sure about the tie breaks. But it seems to me like Blomqvist is winning, because that pawn has gone all the way up until h6, and rook h1 simply doesn't work because white put the rook on h2, and nothing is stopping that pawn. So what can he even try? Let's take on e4, where, okay, let's try including h7 here actually, which means rook h1, simply rook h2 anyway. Rook d8 needs to go back, and I guess f takes. But this might not be that clean, because you just take on c3 and the pawn isn't completely... Should we take with the bishop? Might be a bit strange, but take. And I have a feeling that those 2 pawns together are gonna win this game quite easily actually. But we will see. This is move 43, and already according to the time black is out of it. It's down to the increment. He played king b3 attacking the rook. But fair enough, white could even just put it on h2 to support this pawn, and h6 that's gonna be a new queen. And yeah, so let's try taking on e4. F takes, rook goes back to d8, needs to stop the new queen. h7, let's try putting this one here. And what's the most clean way to win this? I mean, you're gonna get this pawn on c3, but probably not much more than that. Like rook d2 takes, rook d6. Seems to work out pretty well. To me, it looks completely winning for white, and I think it is. So, I don't know, how should I sum up? I haven't seen the standings of the tournament, but what are my key takeaways from this tournament? Basically, I've seen it from a bird's view, sitting here the entire tournament watching their games very closely. But to be honest, Stupak and Mayorov both deserve to win this tournament a lot. They played by far the best chess here. They haven't played perfectly, they've been some scares here and there, but they definitely deserve to win this. Blomqvist is the 3rd grandmaster here, and he's not gonna be happy about his performance in this tournament. Unfortunately, he will probably bounce back and play another tournament soon, where he hopefully will play better. Young Museo, I spoke to him after the game. I'm not completely sure he was aware that he could score an IM norm. So I'm not sure what happened there. He said he wanted to secure his third prize in the tournament. And Siddharth, of course, he played very good chess. He defended many bad positions. It wasn't enough for an IM norm because against Stupak he couldn't defend well enough. He actually didn't need to defend, he had to win. And yeah, so how about the Swedish juniors? I think some of them played quite well. Hampus, for example, beat Blomqvist, drew Young Min today. Great result. Jogstad has played pretty good chess this tournament. But a lot of them, I think, can play much better than they have. Kenneskog lost a lot of rating points. Of course, I have to mention Young Min, who was extremely close to reaching his first IM norm, was the best Swedish performer here. And the rest of them have gotten a lot of experience out of this tournament. And that's one of the most important things and the reasons we have this tournament. And yeah, I don't know how to wrap this up. For example, I was very interested in seeing Axel Buchwald play because he's quite a young talent from Norway that many people have, compared to at least Magnus, I know. And he has been playing good chess. I think he's not mature enough to really beat the grandmasters here enough, but definitely he played some really good chess, and he beat, for example, Fischer in round 3 in a fantastic game where he was outrated by 200 points. So I don't even know if I think they're getting ready for some kind of prize ceremony here. So I think I'm gonna wrap this up, and Stupak and Majoro wins this tournament. Do you know who won the tiebreak?
No, but I can check it for you.
Okay. Well, I assume it will be perhaps it will be decided by the final result, Blomqvist, if they look up the tiebreaks. And but it's extremely likely that Blomqvist actually wins this game. Rook e2 wasn't really the move I expected, but it shouldn't change the valuation. He wants to pick up more pawns, and that's pretty much what I expect from Blomqvist as well, grabbing pawns. So I think the arbiter is gonna just quickly look up who won this tournament. Meanwhile, Jogstad's gonna try and defend this position, and they're already getting ready for the prize ceremony, even though the final game isn't finished yet. But yeah. As for myself, I'm not doing commentary that much anymore. Most likely because I don't simply have the time, and I also like playing chess myself from time to time, even though it doesn't go that well for me. So it's probably gonna be a while until I commentate again. I was very doubtful I would do the commentary this year, but I was apparently easy to persuade, and we will see if I return next year. At the moment, I think it's unlikely considering my schedule at the moment, but we will never see. And it's definitely a lot more fun to commentate when you're with somebody. I mean, it's quite tiring to speak to yourself, and of course Ellen couldn't be here with us today, but I mean for this final round, because she's on her way back to Copenhagen. But I want to thank her for joining me in the commentary in the studio as well. And I think I'm gonna wrap it up, and thank you so much for letting me do commentary this year and all of these 9 rounds, even though we failed a bit with technique in the first round. So thank you so much for this year, and we will see if I'll see you guys next year. Maybe I'll even play. I haven't played this tournament so far. I've only done commentary. But thank you so much, and goodbye.